In the world of BMWs, true enthusiasts always talk about LCI, or life cycle impulse. It's essentially just another term for facelift within a certain generation. So today I'm going to explore the differences, mostly in driving dynamics, between the 2016 BMW 228i and the 2018 BMW 230i, both of the F22 generation. The 2016 obviously being pre-facelift and 2018 being post-facelift. Both of these cars are powered by 2-liter turbocharged inline 4-cylinder engines. They're rear-wheel drive. They have the lightest curb weight of any of the models from the 2 Series, either from the F Series or G Series generations. And both of these cars, although they don't have the characteristic BMW inline 6, have been praised for their amazing handling because they're so light in front where it really counts. But which one really is better to drive? That's the question. So we're starting out with this 2018 230i. This is a car I've driven before. The owner Nathan tracks this car and he's done very minimal mods just to make it a little bit better on track and on the street. But all we really have here is some Bird's suspension, which includes Eibach springs, Bilstein monotube dampers, and compared to OEM, this has 10% stiffer spring rates, with actually reduced rebound damping to make it handle better on a bumpy road. This does have the very desirable track handling package, which includes M240i auxiliary radiators, the bigger M Sport brakes, electronic damper control, although this one has the Bird's coilovers, obviously, so they're fixed in terms of the damping, and variable ratio steering. Unfortunately, this car still has an open differential, although the ESC system does give you brake-based torque vectoring. You can pick up cars like this for about $20,000 nowadays with a manual and the track handling package. This is kind of a rare and desirable spec considering no sunroof, track handling, and a manual transmission. This car weighs around 3,350 pounds, and it's got the B48 2 liters turbocharged 248 horsepower 258 torque. Manual handbrake, even for the facelift model. Interior is very classic F Series BMW. I love the simplicity of the gauges. Speedo on the left, tach on the right. We get an oil temperature gauge and this very basic infotainment, but otherwise a classically good-looking BMW interior. Physical controls, nice seats, although the leather is a little bit on the slippery side. I can get it nice and low, and the steering wheel tilts and telescopes. I can get very comfortable with this car. It's a daily friendly BMW first and foremost. So let's put it right into Sport Plus mode, get the steering to weight up a bit more. Dynamic traction control activates as well. These brake pads are very loud. They're track Carbotech pads, I believe. Ooh, very long shifter throws from the 6-speed manual. There's that brake squeal. And that's what I love about the 4-cylinder powered BMWs. They're so nimble. They turn in better than their 6-cylinder counterparts. Now this Bird suspension is very softly damped. The car has good compliance over bumps, but there is a lot of motion, a lot of body roll. But man, the front end feels so light. This engine isn't the most responsive thing in the world. It makes good power with a broad torque curve, and it revs out to almost 7,000 RPM, but it doesn't particularly reward you for winding it out. It just kind of makes torque everywhere, and it makes a very monotone sound. Oh wow, these brakes are so loud, but effective. Very good pedal feel. M Sport calipers with some upgraded pads. Good combo. Not much steering feel, but I do appreciate in a car like this that it has lighter steering. This is a car that just loves to be flicked into every corner. You don't want it to feel cumbersome in terms of the inputs. Now, there's no rev hang per se with this engine, but it takes a while for the revs to drop. So it's not a car that really loves to be rushed through the gears. This car has lazier responses than what you'd expect from, say, an actual M car. But everything still feels very cohesive. There's no area of this car that feels like a major weakness. And you gotta give BMW credit for that. Even for these base model BMWs with just the upgraded performance or track handling package, BMW gets the balance just right. And not having an LSD is a bit of a bummer, but even pushing it, 7/8 tenths on this back road, it's not that big a deal because this car doesn't have a ton of torque. It doesn't exhibit a ton of one tire fire on corner exit. There's a little bit, but as long as you're a bit more progressive with the throttle, it still hooks up. And obviously the turn-in, I think it's worth the trade-off. For canyon driving, I typically prefer a car that has really good corner entry over a car that has really good corner exit. That's why I kind of shy away from cars like the 996 and 997 911s, at least for canyon driving. On track, it would probably be a different story. But out here, I just love the feeling of being able to enter a corner quickly and with a lot of confidence. And that's exactly what this 230i provides. It's a low effort driving experience. Light controls, compliant suspension, and that super nimble and predictable front end handling. You really can't make this car understeer into canyons. My goodness. It's just so nimble. Even though there's a lot of body roll, a lot of vertical motion over the bumps, this car is just a blast to drive. I wish the engine had more character, but you move up to the 6-cylinder models and you lose this almost whimsical handling dynamic, which is the calling card for these 4-cylinder powered 2 Series. I recently reviewed an M340i versus a 230i, and although the M340i is technically way more capable, the 230i, even of the latest G Series generation, in some ways is more fun on a back road. It's lighter, it's more tossable. Now this 6-speed manual is classic BMW. Long throws, rubbery engagement. It is probably the weakest part of this car's driver inputs. The steering is nothing to write home about either, but at least it's light. I just wish it had slightly better on-center feel. There's a little bit of slop, but with such soft suspension, you wouldn't expect a super direct steering rack. I'm sure you can solve that with aftermarket suspension and bushings. But with that being said, very, very fun to revisit the 230i with just some basic suspension upgrades. Let's see how this compares to the 228i. All right, we're now in the 2016 pre-facelift BMW 228i. This also has a track handling package, which makes this pretty apples to apples, and the owner Efrain has only done a few mods to this, including F80 M3 lower control arms. He added these to get a little bit more front camber, so we're at 1.5 degrees up front. Dynon shockware, which I understand is just a suspension tune for these adaptive dampers, and we've got some upgraded brake lines, Motul brake fluid, and Ferrotto DS 2500 pads. And this track handling package includes all the same things that the 230i track handling package had. So the M adaptive suspension, variable ratio sport steering, M sport brakes. This one is on stock suspension, of course, unlike the Bird suspension of the 230i, so not quite apples to apples. This one actually might be a little bit firmer in terms of the damping, but still, it's very close. But this is powered by a different engine. So pre-facelift, we had the N20 engine. It's still a 2-liter inline 4-cylinder turbocharged, and it makes 240 horsepower and 255 pound-feet of torque. So technically it's down 8 horsepower and 3 pound-feet. But this car is a bit lighter at around 3,260 pounds supposedly, which is almost 100 pounds lighter than the 230i. Interior feels virtually the same, except this one is optioned with a nicer infotainment. Now, unlike the 230i, the 228 was not offered with a 6-speed manual transmission. This has the 8-speed ZF automatic. Directly into Sport Plus mode, manual mode for the transmission. One thing I am learning from driving all these 2 Series, as you can see there's an F87 M2 right there, is that the 4-cylinder variants are oftentimes more fun to drive on a back road than the 6-cylinder versions, including the M2. I just drove that M2 completely stock, and it just feels so nervous. Whereas these 4-cylinder powered cars, much more nimble and confidence inspiring. And that right there is what I'm talking about. The front end response of this car is so much better than that M2. Imagine that. But this comparison is about 228 versus 230. Wow, very closely spaced gearing. And although I'm a manual diehard, I gotta admit, this ZF 8-speed is very impressive. Smooth, quick shifts, not dual clutch quick, but quick enough. Oh yeah. The engine feels similar to the B48. This N20 makes almost identical horsepower and torque figures on paper. I think reliability goes to the B48, but in terms of performance, they're virtually identical. Now, one thing I do actually prefer about this 228i, unfortunately, has to do with the fact that this has stock suspension. The bird coilovers on Nathan's 230, very good for daily driving, but I feel like the decreased rebound damping actually makes the car feel a little bit too soft. With the M Sport adaptive suspension, it feels really good out here. Excellent body control, nice and flat in the corners. Now there is some turbo lag here, maybe slightly more turbo lag here than in the B48, but luckily we have this ZF 8-speed keeping us in the power band. Oh yeah, the damping on this is definitely nicer. Less side-to-side motion in the corners and over bumps. Even though this is firmer, it still soaks up the bumps. I actually really like this stock suspension setup. M Sport brakes feel excellent. This is just on DS2500 pads, so no squeal. Oh yeah, really nice downshift there. This is really good, guys. Again, not the point of this video, but I just hopped out of a stock F87 M2, and oh my goodness, this is so much better to drive. It's more confidence inspiring in every way. The front end is sharper, the car communicates more, and it's way less nervous feeling. Whoa, okay. A little bit of sideways action. It just started to step out, but because this has an open diff, giving it more throttle doesn't always make the car slide in a predictable manner. I think that really is the one mod that would turn both the 228 and the 230i with the track handling packages into a true driver's BMW, a proper LSD. And maybe an intake and exhaust to open up the sound of this otherwise very quiet little engine. But seriously, I am enjoying this more than I enjoyed that M2. The M2 is such a rowdy little car, but it feels so disconnected from behind the wheel. This car It's still not the most talkative thing in the world. I mean, this electric power steering rack is relatively dead compared to, let's say, a 1 Series, but at least the chassis communicates. The balance of horsepower and torque to rear grip is much more manageable. I think the moral of the story here is, regardless of whether you go with the 228 or the 230i, first of all, make sure you get the track handling package, because all of those M performance goodies do make a big difference and make these cars very driver focused, even bone stock. And second of all, just because this doesn't have an M badge or isn't a full fat M2 doesn't mean it's any less of a driver's car. These base models with the performance upgrades really do have a lot of pros over the M cars. I was not expecting to say that, but I drove 3 different 2 Series today and an old 128i. 128i has got to still be my favorite, but that one was also very heavily track prepped. But that hydraulic steering, I mean, it's just on another level. With the 2 Series though, the 4-cylinder models, so fun to drive. When you start attacking those corners, these cars really do come alive. And look, it's not a slow car. Broad torque curve and 240 horsepower still feels pretty reasonable when you have this much torque, over 250 pound-feet. But I do think a tune and some bolt-ons would really wake this up, not only in terms of the power output, but also the sound and the character. But you really can't go wrong either way. 228 or 230, you get one of the best driving non-M BMWs out there. And I really mean that. This is super fun to drive. If only it had an LSD. Just do that, do the bolt-ons and the tune, and honestly, I think you're golden. For significantly less than the price of a base F87 M2, you get, in my opinion, the actually more fun to drive car. So big shout out to Nathan and Ephraim. Let me know what you think about this comparison. Are the 4-cylinder powered 2 Series models being slept on? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you very soon.